Time for our math. We are going on with our multiplication. You're going to be doing page 233 to 234. You should get that out now. We'll do some of the problems together. Today we're going to multiply with 10, which is one I think you'll probably be familiar with, or it will make sense to you because a lot of you are really good at counting by tens, which helps with multiplication. Now your worksheet starts with two pictures. These are groups of 10 grapes, and these are groups of 4 grapes. And then they have two related multiplication facts. 4 times 10 equals 40, and 10 times 4 equals 40. Because you remember, in the related multiplication facts, the two factors equal the same product, okay? Even in either order. But they want you to match which one of these describes which picture goes with which equation. And this, we'll read this as 4 sets of 10 grapes equals 40. Which one of these pictures shows 4 sets of 10 grapes? It's this one. Okay, so 4 sets of 10 grapes equals 40. And 10 sets of 4 grapes equals 40. So you're going to draw a line to connect it to the picture that goes with the equation. And next on the worksheet, they want you to count by tens. And let's look at that together. Let's do that together. I think they're asking you to go through all the way through to 100. So we have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Let's think about what that means. When you're counting by tens, you're just saying 10 more every time. 10 more, plus 10, plus 10. And let's notice, remember when we did fives yesterday, we noticed that every single one, something that helped us know if we're on the right track, is every number ended in a 5 or a 0. Well, tens have a cool pattern like that too. A hint if you're on the right track with your skip counting or with your math facts, and that is that every single one of them, do you see, ends in a 0. So if you see a multiplication fact with a 10, then you know your answer is going to need to end in a 0, okay? So, and I want you to think about when you're skip counting, you're just going up 10 more, or whatever number you're skip counting by, that's what you're doing. So in a couple of days when we work on 4s or 6s or something that you're less familiar with, all you're doing is saying, what's that many more, that many more. So skip counting is really helpful whenever you're working on your multiplication. So here's your skip counting by 10. And then in your worksheet, they're going to ask you just lots of different times for you to work on multiplication facts with the 10. And if you're ever feeling confused or you're not sure if you know, you can come back to the front of the worksheet where you've already written out your skip counting. 10 times 1 is 10. 10 times 2 is 20. 10 times 3 is 30. Having the list of your skip counting written out helps you know what some of the answers to the problems are. On the back, you have a collection of either pictures that are going to help you solve or just simply the problem. So some of them will have pictures and some of them will just be the equations for you to solve. And your review time is addition, some 3-digit addition. And I think you'll do great at it. So I think you're going to enjoy this worksheet. It's introducing or giving you another chance to work on the multiplication by 10. And I think especially if you notice this pattern, you're going to do great with it. Let's take a look at our spelling. We're on spelling list 26 this week, and all of our spelling words that are the pattern words have an ah sound in them. So that's the thing they have in common is the ah, but it isn't spelled the same in all of the words. To get the ah sound, we need different letters depending on the word, okay? So I want us to look at some of our spelling words and write in the blank what's missing from these words that makes the ah sound. Okay, the first one, we see SM and then a blank and an LL. Which spelling word is this? This is the spelling word small. So we're going to put an A. That A makes an ah sound in this one. How about W and then a space, LK? This is in our spelling list. That's walk. A, says ah. Now this one, we're going to put two letters together to make the ah sound. D-R, and then we're missing two letters here. This is draw. And in this word, the A and the W together say ah, right? This one, we're going to use that same A and W to spell the word law. Then we have D and a space and a G. That word is dog. In that word, the ah sound is made with an O. Okay, so I really want you to, these are shorter words and they might seem more simple, but I want you to pay attention to what letter is making the sound, because once you're doing a spelling test or a spelling quiz about it, I don't want you to just use the same letter every time, because they're actually different patterns and different letters to make a similar sound. Ah. Here we have T and a blank and an LL. That's tall. So I did walk 2 times. We're just practicing it twice. Walk, walk. Okay, and then we have talk. And another L1. I did it wrong, so I'll redo it. Another O1 is long. L-O-N-G. Ah, 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 ah. But they're different. So I want you to pay attention while you're writing your spelling lists or while you're doing your worksheet. Your worksheet today is page 103 to 104. And listen, your life will be easier if you don't tear it out of your workbook. Leave it in your workbook, complete it in your workbook, take the photo of it just in your workbook. And that way you don't have to keep up with loose papers, because that's hard. They're too easy to lose. So work hard on your spelling. The quiz will come up on Friday. Okay, we're going to open our reading books. We are to the final section of our story about Granny Nell's dulcimer. We've been talking about Granny Nell's dulcimer for, I think this is the 4th day we're reading the story. So let's review kind of where we've come from. The dulcimer is an instrument, a special instrument, especially for folk music from this part of the country. And do you remember, how did Granny Nell get her dulcimer? It's one of the reasons why it's really special. It belonged to her mother. And one of the other main characters in this story, her name is it's a girl named Tansy, and she has started learning to play the dulcimer because she comes to visit Granny Nell all the time. Granny Nell and Tansy have a lot in common because they both really enjoy music and they love nature and animals, and so they've become good friends. Now, every year, Granny Nell has been entering a music competition, and she always wins, and she always uses that money to help pay for her taxes on her house. But what happened in the last part of the story that makes that worrisome, or maybe it won't work out this year? Can you remember? Well, now Granny Nell can't play her dulcimer because she has a broken arm. And that has been really worrying to Tansy, because Tansy wants to be sure that Granny Nell has the money she needs to pay for her house. So the plan they came up with is that Tansy is going to go to the competition, and she wants to win that money for Granny Nell. And I liked how the story ended yesterday, where Tansy says, "I will practice every day," and she did. Okay, so I wonder what will happen next. Let's read it together. I'd like you to have your book in your hands and be reading along with me. It's really good for you to listen to someone reading and be looking at it yourself. All of that helps you grow in your ability to read and comprehend. So let's look at page 148. It says the music competition. Every day, Tansy practiced playing the dulcimer. As she played and sang the old songs, Granny tapped her foot and sang along with Tansy. The day of the competition came closer and closer. At last, Tansy found herself seated on the stage with the other contestants. She clutched the dulcimer tightly in her lap. One of the fiddlers leaned over and patted Tansy's arm. "Relax," he said. "Just think of something you really like and you'll do fine." Tansy looked out across the crowd as the other contestants tuned their instruments. Then the announcer's voice rose above the noise. "Now, our first contestant is Harley Stevens playing the fiddle." Soon, even Tansy was tapping her foot to the lively music. Each player seemed better than the one before. Then came the announcement that she was dreading. Our last contestant is Tansy Ledford. She's new to the dulcimer, but she was taught by the best, Granny Nell. Tansy rubbed her hands on her dress. She walked to the front of the stage. She sat in the chair that the announcer held for her. She drew the feather over the strings. At first, the beating of her heart seemed louder than the music. Tansy closed her eyes so she would not have to see all the people. As Tansy played, she thought of Blue's wings flashing in the summer sun. She thought of the sound of the rushing stream. She thought of her favorite smells, honeysuckle and Mom's home-baked bread. As the last notes of Amazing Grace faded, Tansy opened her eyes. The people were quiet, and then, as Tansy returned to her seat, they clapped and they cheered, "Hurrah! Hurrah!" The announcer stood up. "Everyone did a fine job," he began. As he finished his little speech, Tansy held her breath. "And the winner is Harley Stevens." Slowly, Tansy let out her breath. She left the stage. She hadn't won. Dad, Mom, and Granny Nell met Tansy at the steps. Mom hugged her close. "You played so beautifully, Tansy," they said. Harley Stevens stepped beside them. He smiled at Tansy. "You did a great job for such a young one." And then he turned to Granny. "It won't be long before she plays as well as you do, Granny Nell." "I think so myself," Granny said proudly. "Oh, but Granny," said Tansy, "I didn't win any money." Granny put her good arm around Tansy. "Now don't you worry about that. Your parents want you to have more lessons on the dulcimer, and they want to pay me to be your teacher." She squeezed Tansy. "There is nothing I would like better." Tansy squeezed Granny back. "Me either, Granny." That's a good ending to that story. Now, what did you think? Did you think Tansy was going to win the competition? I did. I thought she would. That was a surprise ending when she doesn't win. But I like how they still came up with a good solution. Why was Granny Nell's dulcimer so special? Well, it had previously belonged to Granny Nell's mother. And then Granny Nell had learned to play it, and now she's teaching Tansy how to play it. How did Tansy and her family help Granny Nell? Well, first they're just good friends, but then when she hurts herself, they make sure she gets to the doctor. Then they invite her to their house and they take care of her while she gets better. And in the end, they also start paying her to give Tansy the dulcimer lessons. This story makes me want to think about ways that I could help others. I like the story of their friendship, and it makes me think, what are some things I could do to help others? So I want you, as you finish this story, and even maybe as you're working on your worksheet, I want you to take time to think about what are some ways that you could help others. The main character in this story is a girl, just a child like you are, and she saw ways that she could help someone, and I really like this story. I think it's a beautiful one. Okay, you're going to do your worksheet, page 323 to 324. 323 is reviewing the story, and 324 is about different ways that we can make the long A sound in a word. Okay, so work hard. In science, we are learning about how things move. And we've learned about how forces are what makes things move, a push or a pull, and how anything that's moving, the science word for that is motion. That's something being in motion. I like how you've all used your scientist brains to start observing how you see that in action in the world around you. We've also learned about friction and how friction is something that slows down or stops the motion of an object. We're going to start a new section of our book. We'll read 2 new pages, page 170 to 171. We're going to learn some new science words, some new concepts. So as you're reading, I'm going to want you to get your pencil and you underline the bold print words that you come to along with their definition. When you read today, you're going to find the word gravity. Gravity is the force that pulls all things towards the center of the earth. Gravity holds you to the ground, right where you stand. Okay? If something has more mass, then gravity pulls on it more. Mass, we read that word, right? Mass is the amount of matter in something. So we would say an object is heavy. If you were holding a bowling ball and a ping pong ball, you would say the bowling ball is heavy. The weight, gravity has less pull on something with less mass. So if I was holding a bowling ball and a ping pong, gravity has more pull on the heavy bowling ball than the ping pong ball, which has less mass. Weight is the measure of the force of gravity on an object. And one of our science tools that we've used in our classroom at SFCS is a scale, where you can put two objects on a scale and see, or a balance, and you can see which one weighs more, or you can put it just on a scale that will just tell you the amount of weight. Weight is the measure of the force of gravity on an object. Right, so those are our words that you're going to come to when you read in your book. And I just want you to think about gravity is something that's around us all the time. We don't even think about it. You know, you can jump up off the ground. You can jump pretty high, but you don't just float off into space. You always come back down. And that's gravity pulling the weight of you back down towards the earth. And gravity is one of those amazing things that God created, and the world around us is amazing because God is powerful and he made it all work together. I want you to read in your textbook, page 170 to 171, underline your new vocabulary words along with their definition, and then do your worksheet. There's a short worksheet to review some of these concepts of gravity and weight. So for English, we've been learning about giving instructions in a paragraph. And let's look over an example of that. Here I have on my board. When you are giving instructions in a paragraph, you want to be sure that you have all the pieces to make it very clear, okay? Some of the things that you need to make a clear paragraph are a topic. So I want you to start thinking about, you're going to start thinking of a topic of instructions you're going to give in a paragraph. So start thinking about that, because pretty soon I'm going to ask you, what's your topic going to be? Okay? Once you've chosen your topic, we'll think of a title. And since these are all instructions paragraphs, all of our titles are going to start with how to. All right, so here is the title of my paragraph, How to Have a Tea Party. And one of the reasons I picked this is because have a tea party is a really fun thing you can do at your house. All right, I have always, since my kids were small, and we still like it now, different of them to various degrees, like to have a tea party. It's simple, it's fun, you can do it at home with whatever you have around, okay? So this is my title, How to Have a Tea Party. And then I have a topic sentence that says, having a tea party is fun. Okay, that's my topic. I'm just jumping right in, introducing that. And then I list the materials, because if I want somebody to be able to follow my instructions, I want them to know what they're gonna need to have. They're gonna need hot water, cookies, tea, a fun hat, and a guest. Or two. Okay, so whenever you are thinking of who to have at your tea party, I want you to know it can be someone in your family or in your home, but it can also be a toy or a stuffed animal, okay? You can invite anyone to your tea party at home, right? Oh, hold on. You can invite stuffed animals or just toys you have, or you can invite someone in your family and say, hey, you want to have a tea party? It's really fun. I just got the instructions from Mrs. Parsons. All right. A really important part of a tea party at home, I think, is the fun hat. Okay, if you come to your tea party with something fun from your dress-up box or your parents' closet, or just something that's going to make it a little more fun, that's going to add a little bit of fun to your tea party. It makes it a more make-believe party, okay? Now, in a moment, my guest is going to come and we're going to do this, okay? So here's your materials. Here's your title, topic, materials. Then once you see those time order words, first, next, then, last, you know, now we're getting into the steps, the instruction steps of how to have a tea party. So let's jump in. First, put on your fun hat. All right, here's my fun hat. I have a guest. I have a fun hat. All right. Then, oh, and I made the hot water hot already. That might be something you need your grown-up to help you with. teacup. You have your teacup. Our little bunny has a teacup as well. So first we put on our fun hat. Next, we're gonna pour hot water on our tea, okay? So carefully. And if tea isn't really your thing, you know, you could always just use juice, right? It's more about sitting down with a fun hat with a friend or a stuffed animal, okay? Now we have our tea. Then you're gonna wanna dip your cookie in your tea. You know why? Because it makes it delicious, okay? I feel like it's an important step of tea party. So Harper is leaving her cookie on top of her tea because that's a fun trick to make it warm and gooey. So then you're gonna wanna dip your cookie in your tea and eat. Very good. Last, you're gonna wanna say cheers to whoever came. Harper, can you cheers with me? Cheers. And have a fun tea party, okay? We have a tiny cup that Benny can pretend to be drinking as well. Okay, so last lets you know this is the final step of my thing. And also, you want a closing sentence for your paragraph. My closing sentence, my closing thought is, have a fun tea party. And I like that closing sentence because it reminds you of the very beginning, the topic. Remember we told you having tea party is fun? Here's how you do it. Now have a fun tea party. Okay, so I want you to do today, you're gonna work on your English worksheet, plan and draft together. You get to look at an example of someone giving instructions, a how-to, see all the different steps of it. And I want you to look at that worksheet and do what it says so that you're familiar with what you're gonna do once it's your turn to write your own paragraph giving instructions. Okay, that's your worksheet is page 257. I'll put it in your assignments on Teams. Okay, I wanted to actually show you the worksheet that you're gonna do today. It's page 257 in your English workbook. And it has an example of a how-to paragraph and the different ways that you'll work it out. Now your instructions are to start coming up with ideas for your own how-to paragraph. So you can write those down on the back. You can write down topic ideas, write down some ideas of how you would give those instructions, what you think the materials would be. And this doesn't need to be perfect. These are ideas. It's called a draft. It's where you put your first ideas onto paper that we'll work with and make better for a final product later. But right now you're on the draft. So you've seen some of my ideas. The book has some ideas. And then using kind of this framework on the back, I want you to write down what's your idea that you're going to give instructions of how to do, and then start putting some of those ideas down in sentences on the back of this paper. And I look forward to seeing what you come up with and what kind of instructions you're going to give. Also, if any of you decide to have a tea party at your house, will you please send me a photo of you having tea, maybe with a stuffed animal or someone in your family? I'd love to see you in a photo, okay?